because I do 1,300 crunches and sit-ups 4 times a week.
What's a dose? Can you translate for us?
Winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Ernie Els.
Alright everyone, welcome back to the Go Track, the podcast about golf and golf adjacent stuff, mostly from Africa. Compliments of the season to you all, and to you JDv, how's it going in the crest of the hill there?
Yeah, Merry Christmas tea. We've been treated to some, you'd think it's summer, so we've got nice sunny hot weather, but for I think the last decade it feels like it's been living in Scotland during this time of year, so very nice to see some sunshine on the crest, and yeah, like to be on the pod. It's a couple hot days, good for golf, but because of all the rain that we've had, also bad for golf, and that it's basically US Open conditions at every golf course here in Natal at the moment.
Well, I'm down in the Eastern Cape, and we've actually had some pretty good weather down here as well. So yeah, I got out onto the golf course a couple of days ago. Was also reasonably firm and fast out there. Yeah, they've had a little bit of rain down here, but was looking a bit brown at Royal Port Alfred, which I like to see. It was very
I was going to
nice.
say, Royal Port Alfred was looking like a proper like Scotland linksy course, like, not obviously the ones that you see on the open rota, but if you sort of dive into, some of the lesser known Scottish links courses, I mean that I don't know, I had whiffs of that from some of the photos that you were sharing. Yeah, definitely. The ball was definitely bouncing, but yeah, the greens, like the greens are quite, they're sort of old school there, so they're quite slow. They're quite fairy, so the ball wasn't like bouncing hard off the greens or anything. It was very, very enjoyable, I must say. And the rough is about as short as I've ever seen it, so it was a very enjoyable day, I must say. It's a great place to play. Just an enjoyable place to play. Okay, guys, we are just JDv, final podcast of 2024. So, yeah, this is a big one. Well done. But yeah, excited to. We did actually have a pre-recorded podcast, which we will send out in the next couple of weeks on a golf course. But I saw something on, shout out to the Fried Egg Golf guys who released something on their social media channels. Essentially what they did is, the guys put together their favorite 18 holes that they had played that year. And they obviously chose holes from different golf courses, but they had to choose the actual hole numbers. So like, their favorite first hole, second hole, etc. And it was really cool to read through their choices. They've played a hell of a lot more variety of golf courses than you and I have. But yeah, we decided, why don't we do something similar? You and I have both played a reasonable amount of varied courses this year. So we've done that. We have no idea what each of us have picked. But JDv, before we get into it, how many golf courses, just run me through your golf course stats for this year. How many courses have you played? And how many of those were new courses for you? New courses, I'm going to count Gowrie and Durban Country Club as new courses. Apart from that,
as well,
let me just check. No, so apart from that, I've played all of these before. But
I thought Umkomaas was a new course.
Sorry, 100% right. Umko, thank you for that mea culpa. That is absolutely correct. But yeah, I think I played about 18 or 19 courses. I'll quickly go through the ones I've played in 2024. So I played Cotswold, Victoria Country Club, Poof, Royal Durban, Durban Country Club, Mount Edgecombe Woods, Gowrie, Cathedral Peak, Lost City, Glendower, Knysna, Plet, Pezula, Umdoni, Selborne, Umkomaas, Simbithi, Princess Grant, Drac Gardens, Port Shepstone, Champagne Sports. It made this task flipping daunting, and I'm not going to lie, I spent way too much time on it, and I probably panicked at the end and just like
was like, right. So just quickly before you carry on, I just wanted to figure out if you did it the same way that I did it. So I started by writing sort of 1 to 18 on a full step piece of paper, and I was like, right, what was the first best hole that I played? And then I had to go through all of those golf courses and think about the first hole. And I was like, no, this is a terrible way to do this. I'm going to spend like a week doing this if that's the case. So I went through all of the courses that I've just mentioned and picked the standout holes. And then I tried to sort of do a composite after that to say, okay, well, where are the numbers aligning? And then I sort of had to pick a couple from there. We did give ourselves a limit to say that we couldn't pick 3 of the same, more than 3 from one course in this 18. I got to about hole 4 or 5 doing that. And then I panicked and was just like, oh my word, I've got like 5 or 6 or 7 like 18s and I've got 0 8s. So then you're just like, okay, well, which course haven't I picked an 8th for? And then you're like, well, okay, that 8th is okay, I suppose. So it's in the 18. But without sort of showing my hand too early, I probably could have done a lot more homework on this. But time was of the essence, and I had a lot of golf courses to get through.
I really enjoyed this exercise, I must say. I've had a lot of fun over the last 3 or 4 days, just like popping notes down, and I wake up in the morning and then I've been changing some of my holes because I'm like, no, I can't put that hole in. It's diabolical. So I'll just run you through my courses. So just my course stats. I think it is 16 golf courses this year. And if same, including Gowrie and DCC, I have played 8 new golf courses. So half of those courses are new, which I'm pretty stoked about. So I'll run you through those. Gowrie, Umkomaas, Royal Port Alfred, the Lakes MEGC, Zimbali, Durban Country Club, Blair Atholl was a new one. Umkomaas was a new one. Simbithi, Arabella was a new one. Clovelly was a new one. Cotswold, Glendower was a new one. Lost City was a new one. And then Cathedral Peak. And tomorrow, JDv, at 7:30, I will be teeing it off at the Belmont Golf Club, just outside Grahamstown.
I'm very, very keen to get your thoughts on that. That divides opinion, that course. It's tight.
Yeah.
It's short. I love the layout. Compared to the old Grahamstown Golf Club where you could lose your ball in the middle of the fairway, and where every putt was a variation of straight. I think the Belmont's gonna titillate you.
Yeah, so I have played it before. I played it 2 years ago. I'm interested to see. I believe they've tried to widen it, like try to open it up a little bit, just based on some of the feedback, because it is very tight. And I think playing it a second time will be super beneficial, because there's a lot of holes there where you have absolutely no idea where you're going. So I'm looking forward to that. JDv,
flipping sweet clubhouse.
100%. Yeah, good way to end the year. I had a similar experience to you. Basically, I tried to take out, like, I looked at all the courses and then I was like, okay, these are the holes that are non-negotiable. Like, these are holes that are definitely going to be in there. Interestingly enough, what I found is that there were some, like, as an example for me, the third hole, I've got like 3 holes that if they were in any of the other positions, they would be in my top 18. But because they were all the third hole, and then I had some where I was scratching a little bit, to be honest, like holes 6, 7, and 8 are probably my weaker holes. Although I say that probably 6 and 7, I think 8 started becoming a bit more of a contender. And then what I did say to you is, if possible, try and make it a reasonable par. So we're not playing like a par 84 with like 11 par 5s. That was quite difficult as well, because a lot of the standout holes actually are par 5s in South Africa, which we've spoken about in that podcast. But before we dive into it, how many holes do you think we're going to have in common?
Genuinely, I think maybe 1 or 2.
Okay, I think we might have 3 holes in common. I hope we have 3.
Okay, I think I know 2 that we're going to have in common. I've got a feeling.
I think it'll be at least 2. I'm hoping it's 3. Okay, so let's kick it off. Give me your and look, in the interest of time, we're not going to dwell too long on this. But what I've done, JDv, is where I've got a hole where there was another hole in contention. I'm just going to mention that hole as well, as a backup hole. So I'll let you kick off. What was your first hole?
So honourable mentions to start, and again, maybe there's a couple more that I'm missing out. I think, again, harking back to our par 5, Cotswold has a strong par first hole to start. Jack Garden, surprisingly, also a very interesting hole to start. Hole 1, it's the one with the dam on the left, and then the green is tucked into the left. A very daunting tee shot for your first. But I'm going to give it to hole 1 to Pezula, which is the stroke 1 par 5. So I don't know how many golf courses in the world have a first hole par 5.
That's so sick.
And it's a stroke
one.
Beast of a hole, super lacquer. You have to lay up or take a driver and try and run the gorge on your first shot. Then you've got a sort of big left to right slope with a very well protected green with bunkers, blind tee shot for your second or third, depending on what you do. Just a very strong opening hole, not a handshake at all. It's more like a punch in the face, but Pezula is my number 1.
So I've gone in the opposite direction. So I'm a firm believer of the friendly handshake model of a first hole at golf courses, and both of these golf courses that I looked at both have a fairly friendly tee shot. You generally are not hitting driver off this tee box. So my honourable mention is actually Durban Country Club. I think the first hole at Durban Country Club is now such a better hole than it used to be. I think opening up all that bush on the left, the green, they haven't really changed the green site, but just, the greens have been remodeled. They've cut away all that bush behind the green. And it's a reasonably friendly tee shot. You can hit it down there as far as you feel comfortable on your first hole. But the hole I actually am going to give it to you, and I promise this won't be a long theme, but I'm actually going to give it to Gowrie Farm, and it's for the same reasons. It's a friendly handshake, the first at Gowrie Farm, but if you've got a bit of the rights, it can be a little bit daunting. So what I find is that there's a big, wide open fairway. Guys tend to aim quite far up the left. But what I like about this hole is that, and the more I play it, the more that I've learned this, you can lay back off the tee and hit like a 200-yard shot. And typically you end up in line with those bunkers. But if you take a little bit more club off the tee and you manage to get down that hill and down to the right there, firstly, you have a much, much shorter shot into the green. But secondly, on the left-hand side of the fairway, you actually have a much better angle into the green, because the way the slope of that green works is it sort of slopes from your right to left. So if you're coming in from the left-hand side of the fairway, you can almost land up the slope. And I saw this in Club Champs where I was hitting from the right-hand side and one of the other guys I was playing with hit from the left, and our balls landed in similar places. And, his ball stopped pretty easily. Mine just kept going, kept rolling on. So I'm going to give it to Gowrie. I did also have Cotswold in there for a while, just so you know. JDv, I'm going to start with my second hole, and I'm going to say this might be a hole we have in common here. I went with Glendower.
Yeah. Okay, well, spoiler alert, I also went with Glendower. I think that's one of my, we'll hear it on the Glendower pod that we did, but I think we were both pretty in love with the second there. Another par 5, so we're going towards a par 90 at this stage on our golf course, or at least for me, two par 5s in a row. But just for me, that Glendower hole, the way it's framed, teeing off over the dam with the creek going down the left. It's again one of those holes that you can take on the risk early, you can take on the risk later. Quite an easy par if you want to just sort of bail out right the whole time, but also very gettable birdie if you need to take on some risk there. So Glendower for me, what an epic hole.
Yeah, I don't think I have to repeat what you said there. I think for me, what I thought about while I was doing this exercise is holes. Why do I like a hole? And there's two reasons. Sometimes it's just the framing of it, standing on the tee box. I sometimes stand on a 10, I look at this and I go, I like the look of this hole. This is a or sometimes it's more like maybe the first at Gowrie. It's where I've played it a few times and you realize there's a lot of different ways to play the hole. I mean, there's lots of examples of that. So there's two reasons, and for me, this is in the first category. It's just the framing. You stand on that tee box. It's just a beautifully laid out hole. And I've only played it once. JDv, what was your third hole?
So this is one of the ones that I had a bit of a panic on. Let's just have a look if there were any other honourable mentions. Durban Country Club, obviously, but I didn't want to go to that because they haven't changed much at Durban Country Club third. So it gets an honourable mention, and I'm going to give it to. Oh, sorry, Gowrie third also got a mention. I really like the new third at Gowrie, but I'll let you speak about that maybe if it's one of yours. But my third hole goes to Champagne Sports. Par 3, ode to... Actually, no. Shit, that's the fourth. God. I mean, I have to... Just thinking back on this now. So, yeah.
I was going to say, did I miss a hole when I played there last time?
Okay. So, let me give it to Gowrie then.
Yeah, good man.
Although I'm not sure then I'm going to have too many Gowrie holes. But, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn it! That's an early trip. Okay, Gowrie, I'll put Gowrie down as a panic pick.
So this was one of the holes that I had. Like this was my strongest hole. Like of so all the other holes I had on here, I actually didn't have the third at Gowrie down, but I don't disagree with you. I think it's one of the best new holes that they've built. Probably one of the two best. Lots of different ways to play it. It's got that road hole. You know, it's really the road hole. It's kind of a replica. Well, not a replica, but it's got the spirit of the road hole. It's got that road hole bunker. Did you go down into that bunker?
Terence, I played the third like a demon. I was smoked to drive. Had like a 7-iron into the green. Pushed it right onto that tee box, basically. You know where the wall is.
Sick.
Then try to chip
onto
it back
the tee box.
Yeah, onto the tee box. And now I'm trying to chip onto that elevated, like the thinnest part of the green, essentially. So anyway, managed to leave it short, then thinned it over the back, then left it short again. So I'm choosing a hole that I made triple on as my favorite third hole.
Sick.
But it's a really good hole.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen quite a few car crashes on that hole. And what I've learned is that it's one of those. So off the tee, you've got a few options. And so for like the bullies, that he's got that finger of fairway that goes out to the left, which is the safe play. But if you go down there, your angle to the green is harder. So you sort of bring the road hole bunker into play. And what I've learned about that hole, basically, if your first time you played that hole, it's better to be short of that green or long of that green. If you're left or right, forget about it. Like
hard lesson to learn for me.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry. My honorable mentions are DCC. Obviously, I think. I try. What I've tried to do, Jacques, is I've tried to include a whole. I've tried to include as many of the courses I've played this year in my 18. So I did have a few where they were toss-ups, and I put in a course that hadn't been mentioned yet. I also want to shout out the third hole at Royal Port Alfred. So this is my favorite hole at Royal Port Alfred, and it's the reveal hole. So it's the third hole where you play your tee shot is towards the sea, but from the tee box you can't see the sea at all, and then it's a very simple par 4. But as you sort of crest the fairway, you see the green. It almost looks like it's floating on the sea. And then you just have this 180-degree view. It's so sick. It's
that's
honestly
the one that you did post a picture of that, I think, on your story. Yes, that was...
I did, yeah.
It's a nuts hole.
It's so cool. Just the visuals of that hole. It's not a difficult hole. But the hole that I went with, and for me, Jacques, this was actually a no-brainer. Like from when I stood on this tee box, and I'd heard about this hole, but I was like, "Is it going to live up to the hype?" But it's the third hole at Blair Atholl. So it's a par 3, and you basically right in the woods. You play over a dam, and it's this huge, like all the greens at Blair Atholl, absolutely massive green, massive bunkers, but wow, what a stunning par three! Like honestly, one of the most beautiful. It's got to be one of the most beautiful par threes in South Africa.
Have you seen that par three? I think it's that one and the 12th at Augusta lined up side to side. It's a bit of a template. I mean, look, don't get me wrong; it is an absolutely beautiful hole, and I know for me playing, Blair Atholl just seems unnecessarily long. And again, it's not really because you're playing at altitude, but I remember standing on there being like, God, this is a pretty long carry. And I feel like that on all of the par threes on Blair Atholl, where I was like, shit, I can't be short and I can't be long, and I've got to hit like a 6-iron. But that
I think
that
I hit an 8-iron on that hole,
okay.
And I went long into the back bunker. So
you're a lot longer than me.
Yeah, maybe the tees were up, but it was just like honestly, you could stand on that green and just like do a 360 spin around, and it just, I don't know, maybe it was the day we played. Like it was just, it's a really really beautiful hole. So, and the bunkers at Blair Atholl are very, I think they're really good bunkers. Like they're massive, and you really want to try and avoid them, but the quality is very good. They're not super difficult to get out of. JDv, I'm going to kick off the fourth hole. For me, this was a difficult one. I didn't have a lot of contenders, but I ended up going with the fourth hole at Arabella. So I did mention this on the podcast. It's actually one of the holes that's right on the opposite side of where the lagoon is. You're right up in the forest, and it's a dog leg to the right, quite a narrow hole. And I think the beauty of this hole is like where the green site is. So the last like sort of 100 meters, the green just sits in this little bowl. It just looks like it was meant to be there. Really, really cool hole. Like I spoke about it on our Arabella discussion, but that's my call for the fourth.
I think you're going to be surprised, or maybe not, with my call. I went with Cathedral Peak, fourth hole. That is the one that you tee off elevated tee box with the river running all the way down the left, framed by the mountains in the background. So it's a sick hole. I mean, it really is. I mean, take the conditioning out of it, and imagine that thing was like conditioned in the same way that like an Arabella or something. It would be one of the top holes in the country. It's a nuts hole.
So actually, I should have mentioned the honourable mention to the third hole at Cathedral Peak. Should have been in my third hole.
I also had it as an honourable mention.
Because that's one of both of our favourite holes. So I like that. It's a good call. Let's go to number 5.
Okay, number 5, T. Had an honourable mention for the Gowrie Road hole. Again, I just like that sort of quirk. We're sure we'll do a dive into Gowrie. I love the wall. Bit bleak that they took a piece out of the wall, but I love the wall. So honourable mention there. But my number 5 is, you're going to have a look at this, is actually Royal Durban. So I know that you'll enjoy that.
Okay.
And your one?
Just remind me, just talk me through the fifth hole again at Royal Durban.
I'm going there. I've got like 3,000 tabs open. I was hoping you weren't going to ask that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I've got it. It's the par 5 that you love. That's why I remembered. I've got that in my notes. So it's the one that you have to decide what you want to bite off with that.
Yes,
with that
you see,
down.
I'm rubbing off on you, JDv. You would
look,
never have picked that. You would never have picked that hole.
I think you incepted me quite hard, because when I got on there, I was like, oh, this is like weirdly sick. Like, oh, damn it.
Okay. Well, not to prolong the point, but I have gone with the fifth hole at Gowrie. I just think you're not going to play another hole like that in South Africa. It's a unique kind of proposition from the tee box. You kind of aren't really sure where you're going. And then, I've told the story before, but basically they dug up, when they were digging up all those fairways, they found all these rocks, and they were like, well, either we got to get rid of these things, or they found a guy, and then they built this wall, which is kind of a shout out or I wouldn't call it a replica, but it's a nod to a hole at North Berwick in Scotland, which is called the Pit, which has a stone wall kind of running all the way in front of it. So it's a very fun hole. Right, JDv, we are on to number 6 now. I thought the wall might be one of our same ones. So
it did get the honourable mention.
Okay, we're only on 2 together. This was a tough one for me, JDv. Sixth holes wasn't a strong suit for me. I don't know about you. I'm interested to see if maybe there's something I've missed. But I am going with the 6th hole at the Lakes at Mount Edgecombe. So
okay,
look, I didn't think I'd include the Lakes at Mount Edgecombe because it's not one of my favorite golf courses. But I was really battling for 6th holes, to be honest with you. And it's an interesting hole. It's essentially that one where you got to lay back a little bit off the tee, and then you hit sort of diagonally across towards that green that sits, you hit almost heading towards where the interchange is. So it plays across that slope. Do you remember it?
Yes.
So often you got to lay back with like a 4-iron, or I know sometimes guys, you can get like a 3-wood, which goes all the way down that fairway to the bottom there, and then it's a lot easier. But it's funny, I see a lot of train wrecks on that hole. It messes with people psychologically. Like I've had plenty of train wrecks on that hole. So it's at least an interesting hole. So that was my 6th.
Nice. Do you want me to do 7?
What did you say for 6? Because I don't think you've mentioned yours.
Sorry. Okay. 6. I haven't. So 6, I went with Cotswold Downs. So I think for me, it's the short par 4, like a million bunkers on the right on the slope there, with the bunker left. What I like about that hole is you can try and drive the green, and you bring in a lot of trouble if you do. Or you can sort of take all the trouble out of play, hit a sort of 6-iron off the box, and have a sort of wedge into the green. Depending on where that flag is, I think it makes the hole exponentially harder. If it's a sort of white flag, it's a very birdieable hole. But if you've got the yellow flag tucked on the left by the bunker and the slope, or the red flag, there's a huge amount of trouble that you can bring into play if you go for those. So yeah, I think visually it's an interesting hole to tee off. I mean, forced carry over the gorge, and then just all of those bunkers just scream at you. And I think I've seen Sean once play that hole where I think he's hit every one of those sort of 30 bunkers on the course for walking away. So yeah, that was my pick for number 6.
It's a great hole. I think I mentioned before, I'd love to see a few of those bunkers removed. I think it would make it a lot more enticing to take a driver. There's just too many for me. There's just too much risk. Okay, number 7. What have you got?
7, I don't know if this is, you enjoy a hole more when you play it well, but then I would say my pick of the, what was it, the 4th which was my Gowrie pick, the 5th? No, 4th. Well, anyway, my Gowrie pick where I made a triple. So this is one where my only birdie that I made on Gowrie on the new course, and it is the 7th hole tee. It's the stroke 1 par 5. So I've picked 2 stroke 1 par 5s as my favorite holes. That is where there's OB on the right. It's pretty sick. It's like basically cows all the way down the right. So you could hit a cow with your driver if you go too far offline. But also if you go left, it's open, but there are bunkers there waiting to catch you. And if you really go left, there's a couple of big trees there to catch you too. Then right where you want to sort of lay up, there's a number of bunkers, fairway bunkers, which say, okay, you've either got to like take a big club to sort of get over these, which makes it's like a sort of a pitch into the green, or you're going to lay back out of these bunkers and you're going to have quite a long iron in. The green complex is insane. There's sort of, when I say 2 or 3 or 2 tiers to it, it's like 2 different levels. I mean, I think you got to take an elevator down from one tier to the next on that green. We were lucky that I think we probably had the easiest flag, which was the bottom tier there. So as long as you got it to run, sort of pitch it on and run it down that slope, it sort of nestled up quite nicely at the bottom there, and left a reasonably easy birdie putt for me. But I really like it. It's a tight hole for a par 5, and it does force you to take on risk at some stage, which I really like in a golf hole. So 7 for me at Gowrie.
Yeah, it is. I think strategically it is a great hole. It's one of those holes that just is in my head this year. I think I mentioned to you I have not played that hole well. The OB down the right is immediately gets into your head on the tee box. So what I've typically done is I've pulled my tee shot left, and I can tell you there's a lot of nasty places you can hit your ball into. And then you got those cross bunkers, and then you've got that super interesting green side to deal with. It's a great hole. JDv, this is my 7th. This was really a bit of a weak spot for me, but I was also trying to include as many courses as I'd played, and this is a big shout out to Hoff. But I've actually included the 7th hole at Simbithi as my nomination. It's one of the few par 4s at Simbithi, and it's the one where the green is like a good sort of 20 meters above a lot of the fairway, and it's up on the left hand side. I think it's a really interesting hole from the tee because you can get there with the driver, but you have to hit it all the way. It asks you to hit it all the way down the left-hand side of the fairway and then try and run it up onto the green. And I've seen many people do this. And if you do that successfully, then you've got an eagle putt and probably an easy birdie. If you don't and you end up hitting out to the right and the fairway extends a long way, almost all the way in line with the green on the right-hand side, then you've got this super awkward chip up like 20 meters. You'll only have a 30 or 40 meter approach, but it's very difficult to get it close. So it's actually quite a good strategic hole off the tee. And I like a drivable par 4 that's kind of interesting. So
Love
that is my nomination.
Love that
JDv, I'm going to jump straight away into number 8. And this very simple hole for me. There's nothing tricked up about it, but I just love standing on this tee box. It's got very natural surrounds. And this is the 8th hole at Royal Port Alfred. It's a very short par 3. I think I hit a 9-iron there a couple of days ago. It's got the little halfway house sits behind it. So you only play 8 holes at PA, and then you have a halfway house. It's just a lacquer little simple short iron par 3. Can be tricky because you're protected by the wind where the tee box is, so you don't know necessarily what the wind's doing. But you just got to look up at one of the many wind socks that they have around Royal Port Alfred. And I learned that from my caddy a couple of days ago, and those give you a clue of what club to hit. But nice little hole. Nothing crazy about it, but fun hole.
So the 8th for me was an absolute panic. It was sitting there as a blank spot. It was one of the ones that I was just sort of running through courses. There's an easy number 8th. There's an easy pick for me here, which would be Durban Country Club as an 8th hole.
Yep.
I really like Durban Country Club 8th, but I do feel like that might blow my quota, and it's an easy pick. But I mean, actually, it's difficult to find another 8th. That I was having a look at Sheppey. I don't like that par 3 at Sheppey as an 8th. You go first, T. I'm still undecided on my 8th hole.
Well, I've said my 8th hole.
Oh God!
It's Royal Port Alfred, yeah. And by the way, I did have DCC down as an honourable mention, and if I hadn't played Port Alfred this year, I mean, I think DCC would slot in there for me every day. I think it's a great hole. So Sorry, JDV, you're going to have to make a call now.
Okay. I'm going to go with the 8th. I had actually written here the 8th at Simbithi, but I mean, that was just like pure panic. It's a par 3 with par 3 would be a good guess at Simbithi, but the one with the dam on the left and the sort of the green complex. But I'm going to go with the 8th at Pezula. Stroke 9, beautiful view. So just to read you the quick thing, it says, stop, the hole is to the left, the lagoon is to the right, and the mountain and the sunset. This par 4 requires accuracy over acceleration, which I love. Your approach to the right part of the green will send you away smiling. So I'm going to go with the 8th at Pezula in a panic, thinking that I still had time to make you do your pick. I'm sure if I had more time, I'd give that one more thought, but I think the 8th at Pezula is a good one.
Accuracy over acceleration is a perfect summary of your golf game.
Yeah, so when accuracy goes, it's dog shit.
Okay, the 9th hole was an easy one for me. This was one that I just had written down. I written down 4 in the beginning when I wrote down holes that I wasn't going to leave out, and this is the 9th hole at Arabella. So this is your drivable par 4 again. You're right on the lagoon. You've got the wind whipping on your left shoulder. You've got the lagoon all the way down the left. It's just a kind of judging what club you're going to take, how far left are you going to aim. It's pretty sick. You can, if the prevailing wind's blowing, you literally can start it like over the lagoon. The 9th at Arabella was an easy one for me.
Interesting. I went with the 9th at Lost City, actually. Again, a hole that I blew out on, but I think it's a good hole. It's a very difficult par 4. It's a very long par 4. Elevated tee, water down the left, waste bunker down the right. I think it's a better version of 18, essentially, which is the par 5 and almost a mirror image of it, where you're playing to a sort of island green, which juts out to the left into the dam, whereas the par 5 juts out to the right. The par 5 plays as a short par 5, and that plays as a long par 4, and I think it plays better that way. Sort of if you decide to not take on the risk of the water with your approach, there's 3 bunkers down the right, which means you're coming out of the bunker towards the water on the green. 9th at Lost City for me was my pick there.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad hole. Okay, cool. Let's jump to the 10th. And now I think we may be in territory where we may have the same hole here. But JDV, my 10th hole was Glendower, the par 4 at Glendower.
Yo, it's a great hole.
Which is one of the holes that you put as your 2 favorite holes from Glendower in our Glendower, which hasn't been released yet, actually, but in our Glendower pod.
So I've got it as an honourable mention alongside Durban Country Club 10th. Now with the renovations there, 10th was a bit of a nothing par 5, but with the with the sloot that they've put in there, I really think it's a great par 5 now.
It's pretty sick, yeah. But
I've gone with something a bit offbeat. I went with Princess Grant 10th, which is you teal from the clubhouse. You've got it sort of slopes all the way left to right with an elevated green, also 2 tiers, difficult green complex, beautiful view once you're on that green. Tricky hole. If you don't hit it on the fairway, you've got a blind shot to it, and you can't be long or left, and you did. So I went with the 10th at Princess Grant.
I like that. I didn't play Princess Grant this year, but I like that. I like that nomination. One of my favorite holes at Princess Grant for sure. Just standing on the tee, love the look at that. Okay, 11 JDV. What have you got?
Honourable mention to start. Glendower. We did discuss it. The sort of the tee box. How much do you want to bite off? You can try and go over the trees, but you're bringing more and more water into play. Or you lay back and it's a very interesting green complex here as well. But I didn't go with that. I went with Victoria Country Club 11th, another par 5 to try and round out my par 90 18 holes that I'm playing here. I think the 11th at VCC is probably one of my favorite holes there. it's you tee off in the trees. There's water out, but you can blow it left. But that means that the angle that you've got into the fairway is again towards two big dams there. Small green with a sort of a bunker right, protecting you from rolling into the water, and a bunker left, two-tier green. So if you're on the bunker left, it's difficult to keep it on there. But also very reachable, and two for even short hitters like myself. VCC 11th for me.
Okay. I actually went with Lost City, JDv. So Lost City 11th is that big downhill par 5. You've got the huge number of bunkers on the right-hand side. So the fairway sort of goes round and then almost dog legs to the right. And you got to try and obviously, if you can catch your drive, then you can fly those bunkers, which I managed to do. And then the green site is, again, it's a bit like the third hole at Gowrie. It's sort of long and thin, that green site. And what I discovered is if you go left or right, you are basically poked. So I went into the left-hand bunker, and then couldn't keep my ball on the green, went into the bunker on the other side. And then I think I hit it over the green again. So I played some serious ping pong there. But I was trying to squeeze Lost City in somewhere. We haven't recorded our Lost City pod, which is going to be a little bit of a plank walking. But look, I think the bones are not bad at Lost City, and that was probably the hole that fitted in my 11th the best. Now on to number 12. This was a pretty easy one for me, JDv. I've gone with the 12th hole at Durban Country Club, the Prince of Wales. That new green, purely because this is probably one of the most unique greens you're going to play in South Africa. That new Beirut green that they've got there is super cool. I mean, it's always been a fun hole. Short iron in hand, and now your distance control with your iron is going to be tested even more depending on where they put that pin. We had a front pin, which I think is probably the hardest pin when we played it. And you've got that massive swale in the green. And then you still have the challenge of if you miss the green left or right, you're basically playing ping pong as well. So honourable mention there to Gowrie, the 12th hole at Gowrie, which is also a short iron in hand and has numerous pot bunkers around it. And that's the hole that I made a 9 on during Club Champs at Gowrie. So had to give it a mention.
Gowrie also was on there for me for an honourable mention. I like your pick of DCC. I'm going with the 12th at Pezula again. Pezula, the 12th, is, again, beautifully framed. OB on the right, but I mean, you basically got the Knysna heads down the right-hand side, so you can't hit it right. You have to hit a decently long tee shot there, and then into a reasonably benign green with quite a big slope. But I think for me, it's one of the holes that you mentioned when you talk about framing. That's like right on the heads. So the 12th for me at Pezula.
I feel like you've reached your Pezula quota now. Is that accurate?
I do. I panicked and picked the 8th at Pezula, so that's probably why I've blown it. But having a look down the list, I don't have any more Pezula, so okay. I'm glad I've hit that quota.
All right, cool. On to the 13th. Honestly, this was also tough for me. Not a lot of holes that jumped out in my list. And in the interests of trying to cover a lot of the courses that I played, I have gone for the 13th hole at Clovelly in Cape Town. This was actually one of the holes that I really just liked the look of from the tee box and from the fairway. So it's a quite a narrow par 4. But the reason I really like this hole is that it's one of the few places on the course where they actually have some of the natural dune scape that you get in that area all the way down the right-hand side of the hole. So if you hit your ball on the right, either into it or you can actually go over it, then you've got completely blind shot towards the green. And then the green sits at a bit of an angle to the fairway. So it's got one of those sort of diagonal vibes to the fairway. So... it wasn't a standout hole. You know, I don't know if it would make my top 20 holes played this year, but one of my favorite holes that I liked at Clovelly, and that is my 13th.
I think you missed a trick here, T, if you were looking to include 13th at Umko for me, the par 3, right at the top of the property. It was a great hole, T. I mean, you think about how again, framing of a hole, but also a good golf hole. You know, you're playing, it looks elevated. I mean, well, I suppose it is elevated, but because the green is so elevated as well, you're sort of almost playing at the same height, but everything around you is sort of like, you know, you're playing from one pillar to the next. And once you're on that green, it's like an infinity pool, you know, all the way to the ocean below. So Umko 13th for me, it was one of the ones that I had written down without any honorable mentions elsewhere. I just had to put it in there.
I don't disagree with that. I think it's a great pick. It might have been, the reason I didn't pick it maybe is because my 14th hole is actually Umko. And that it was one of the ones I'd written down right in the beginning. Just that tee shot from right up top, basically next to the green that you're talking about. And then you've got that sort of, you basically play across a valley. So you've got that diagonal sloot that runs there, and you got to decide, like, are you going to go and hit like pick the brave shot, which I opted to do because I was one of the few days that I was actually hitting my driver well. And I hit a crack over drive there. And I think you guys sort of laid up short of the sloot, and then from what I remember, we all sort of got onto the green and had birdie putts. But it's a really, really cool hole. So that was my 14th.
Yeah, that well, I mean, to sort of ride on that wave, I also had that as an honorable mention. But was this? We're talking about favorite holes. This was one of my favorite holes I played this year for a very different reason, and purely because it had a bit of infamy on it. And it's the Plet Mat hole. It had to be there somewhere. The fact that those 2 oak trees have been cut down and you're playing off a mat, I don't know. So it's a short par 4 dog leg left.
When you say cut down, they were
struck down.
When you say cut down, they were cut down by the big guy.
Cut down by God. Yeah.
We still haven't decided whether it was 1 strike of lightning or 2.
Yeah, I think we need to get.
You said you were going to get back to me on that one.
Do some investigative journalism on that.
Maybe while I'm down here in the Eastern Cape, I'll see if the locals have got any info on that.
Yeah, but those farmers from
they've never been to Plet. They've never been to Plet. What?
Yeah, Alfred, bro. But yeah, so Plet, Matty. I couldn't resist not picking that as my 14.
I like it. I was actually wondering whether Plet or Neisner was going to feature in your group. JDv onto the 15th is a par 5 for me, and I went with the 15th hole at Glendower. So Glendower, I think I maxed my quota out here, but yeah, I think I mentioned this afterwards and when we were chatting, just again, one of those holes where you stand on the tee and you're like, oof, you know, the bunkering that we spoke about, you know, that the architect was famous for, it really stands out on that hole. You've got bunkers left and right, but they're, you know, at sort of 40-meter intervals, and you got to work out how are you going to play this hole. And then a very interesting green site as well, which sort of is I can't remember if we decided if it was convex or concave, but it was one of those two.
It has to be one of those.
It's been a long holiday. It's absolutely not flat, people. That's all we can report. But yeah, that's my nomination.
I went again to your point, trying to get a lot of courses. I'm sure I could have gone through and found a better 15th, but I do like this one. Was Port Shepstone 15th? It's their stroke 1, par 4. You know, you've got to hit a pretty long drive to a very tricky fairway, and then again you've got quite a long shot into the green, bunker right. Can't go left. Also, there's a stream that runs through there. You have to carry another stream to get over there. And I think it's a really good hole. You know, playing again towards, I'd like to say the ocean, but you're playing towards the road before the ocean. And yeah, I think 15th at Sheppey deserves a shout out. It's a good hole.
Is that the one with the big tall trees on the right hand side?
Yeah. The big the palms.
Okay, so I actually didn't mention Port Shepstone when I listed my courses earlier, but I did actually play there this year, and I must say, now that I think about it, I didn't include it when I was thinking of any of my holes. So, bit of a mea culpa there on my side. Apologies to all the loyal Port Shepstone members that listen to our podcast.
I think there are many of them. Isn't it another one of the virtual membership courses?
the 8,000 Port Shepstone members.
Sorry to all of them.
Yeah, but there are some really... Port Shepstone is a sneaky underrated course, and there's 100%. Some really good holes on that back and on the front as well. So, yeah, that's a good shot. I'm glad you got that in there. JDv, my 16th hole is Gowrie Farm. I think now, this used to be a hole that played as a par 3 and a par 4. And now that it's sort of settled into its identity as a par 4, it's just one of those holes that there's so many different ways you can play this hole. And I've honestly played it. There's 3 kind of primary ways you can play this hole, and I've tried all 3. And really, honestly, it depends on how you're playing, what the weather's like, what wind direction you've got. So, I mean, basically, for those who don't know, you can stand on the tee box and you can actually see the green and you can just see the flag. But between you and the green is essentially a whole lot of rough and a hazard. And then the fairway sort of wraps down the right-hand side, and there's a diagonal lateral hazard which runs in front of the green about, I don't know, some parts it's about 50 meters, and then it gets to about 20 meters in front of the green. The green is sort of long. It's got 2 tiers, and then it's got a big bunk on the right-hand side, and then there's like slopes on the left-hand side, which you can potentially feed your ball off. So the different ways of playing the hole, I mean, you can drive the green. Last time we played it, I drove into the bunker next to the green on the right-hand side. You can lay up way back. So I've also started doing this as well, because what I found is that you want to hit down the length of that green, and that's actually the best angle. Literally, you can hit a 7-iron off the tee, and you've only got like maybe a 9-iron in or something.
But the shorter
or you can hit like a...
The shorter you try and play that, the more daunting it looks. So it's once you get down there, it looks like quite a lot of space. But from the tee box, it doesn't look like you're hitting into much room. Yeah.
There's actually more space there than you think. And then you can also try and hit like your sort of 200 or 220 club down the fairway and hit it way down the right. There's a little sneaky fairway bunker though, which catches a few people out on the right-hand side. But if you go a little left of that, the problem with that option is you might think, oh, I've hit my best tee shot of the day. But now you've got to hit to a green, which you're hitting directly. The green is running left to right. So you're hitting into a shallow green with the big bunker in front of you. That's not an easy shot. So I love that hole. And yeah, that's my pick.
Nice, yeah. I like that one, T. I went with, I don't know why, I feel like I picked a shitload of stroke ones, which is, I don't enjoy actually playing stroke ones, so I don't know why I've got so many stroke ones on my list here, but I picked the 16th at Mount Edgecombe Woods. That is, so after you've played the par 3 island green, you sort of go around and there's a couple of tee boxes almost in the dam, and you've got to play over the dam. Again, it's one of those ones that you sort of bite off however much you want to chew to make your second shot shorter. I feel like there's always buck around there for some reason. Just had to mention that there's always some impala chilling around the green complex there.
There's so many impala on that estate. It's like
I don't know if their home base is the 16th green, but I mean that seems to be where they chill. But
I wonder what the ratio of impala to Egyptian geese is at Mount Edgecombe. I don't know if one of our listeners could give us. I would say it's
and impalas and Egyptian geese to monkeys in Mount Edgecombe as well.
5-1.
And monkeys, I mean, they had a whole like documentary on the monkeys in Mount Edgecombe that was on
out of control. Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a long iron into that green, pretty lush bush around it. I really like that hole. So that's my number 16.
I like that hole too. Nothing wrong with that hole. Great tee shot. How much are you willing to bite off? I think that's the question. How brave you're feeling, which is a great question to ask someone. Right, JDv, moving to the tail end here, and fingers crossed we're going to tick off our second hole that we have in common.
Pretty sure we have. Should we say it at the same time?
Let's say it at the same time.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Durban Country Club.
DCC 17th, yeah. The best hole at DCC now, and it was always one of my favorite holes, but it's been made even sicker now by the moving of that green, about, 15 meters left. And it's got a different angle. It's like right tucked underneath that dune. The tee shot is as sick as ever. It really asks you to hit it up the right-hand side of that hole so you can have a visual sight of the green. If you hit onto the left-hand side of the fairway, you're going to be hitting a blind shot. Just got to take your medicine unless you absolutely smash one and get it over the hill. But one of the best, most interesting fairways in South African golf, I think. And with the changes they've made to the green sites and that, it is just, it's epic. Love that hole.
I wonder if you and I will agree on this tee. That for me is probably the best hole I've played this year.
I think so. I think I was going to ask you that question at the end. It's a tough one, hey. I'll give you my sort of top 3 standouts at the end, but yeah, that's definitely in there.
Nice.
All right, cool. So 18th now. I got to say I had DCC down as my 18th hole for quite a long time. And then you know what, Jacques? It's the festive season. I didn't want to be seen to be combative against you guys living in Hillcrest, and I thought, you know what, Cotswold Downs 18th is a lovely par 5.
Throw another par 5 in the mix.
Yeah. So I've only got 4 here on my golf course.
I think I've got about 10.
I've got three on the back 9 though, so that's pretty sick. You can make a bit of a birdie run, but I think the Cotswold 18th is a great hole because I've made everything from a birdie to like a triple there. And again, it asks you how much are you willing to bite off on your tee shots. If you really take it on, you can get way down that fairway over the first bit of water. Then you got the second bit of water to go over. Green side littered with bunkers on the right-hand side, but it's very, very gettable in 2. I mean, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I think it's very gettable in 2 if you are in the right position on the fairway.
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, if you can bite off it or hit it with a bit of a draw when it's firm, I mean, you can potentially have a 7-iron into that green on 18. But it's still not an easy 7-iron. You're probably going to want to push it right to stop yourself from, because I mean it's all hazard down the left, and if you don't get cross over, with a fade or something, then you're dropping back, on that side. We're probably taking like another 8-iron on. So yeah, I mean I'm 100% for 18 at Cotswold. It had an honourable mention for me. The other ones that had honourable mentions for me were Umkomaas again. I think it's a great 18th with the sea down the right hand side. For me, the 18th at Umko feels quite linksy, actually. I don't know if you'd agree with that. Right by the ocean, a little bit flat, quite an interesting green complex to play into, especially when Oaks are finishing their golf tour there and offering you beers. I had another honourable mention for Champagne Sports. I think that's a great hole to finish on. Again, you have to hit the shot to give yourself a good look at a short iron into that green. Alternatively, you're going to blow it right into those traps there. Probably going to have to splash out and go for it, the green in 3. Alternatively, you can take on the risk on the left, get it on the fairway, have a relatively short iron into quite a sloping green complex. But sorry, that's an honourable mention. I went with my heart. We're picking our favourite 18s. In the spirit of the holidays, I went with Umdoni T. I don't know if it's the best golf hole in the world, but it's certainly one of my favourites. I don't know how many photos have been taken on that tee box. Panoramics of the ocean there on the south coast. A pretty straightforward par 5 that you can go for in 2. You sort of smoke your drive, and then I've got probably a hybrid into that green. I think the bigger hitters will probably have a mid-iron to a short iron. But from favourite hole perspective, I had Amdoni at 18.
You know what? I actually had Amdoni also written down for like a day or so. And yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely an honourable mention for me. It's very hard to pick between those 3 that I mentioned. And yeah, I agree with you. Amdoni's just purely a sort of a soulful pick, standing on that tee box. Nice, man. So we knocked it out there. Well done. Just hit the hour mark. JDv, you asked the question on which was my favorite hole. I can't not say the 17th at DCC. I mean, probably honorable mentions in my top 3 would be that third hole, Blair Atholl. I really think it's amazing. Also, probably favouring new holes here, but I really enjoyed the 9th hole at Arabella. And then I'd probably say the 16th at Gowrie and the 17th at DCC. But yeah, the DCC 17 I think is probably clear cuts way above the rest.
I think I had to put in 2 at Glendower there as well. I think for me that's such a sick hole.
Yeah, and that's more or less it, guys. We have wrapped up. Those are our 18. It would be interesting to hear guys' feedback on holes they think we might have missed, and also to hear on maybe holes you guys liked. Love to see other guys post their sort of favorite 18th holes. I'd actually encourage you to do this because it's been quite a fun exercise over the holidays. It's been like a bit of a crossword puzzle vibe, trying to piece it all together. So. Just wanted to shout out, JDv, the courses that I didn't include, and you can maybe rack your brain here, but I didn't pick any holes from Mhlali. I didn't pick any holes from Port Shepstone, which is, again, mea culpa from my side. Not sure whether they would have made it, but it wasn't actually on my original list. I didn't pick any holes from Cathedral Peak, which I think is a pretty serious blunder. Again, when you mentioned Cathedral Peak earlier, I actually forgotten that we played it. So also wasn't on my menu to choose from, but very well could have snuck in a hole from Cathedral. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm playing the Belmont tomorrow, so, didn't pick any holes there. But otherwise, I try to spread the love a little bit.
Yeah, I also spread the love T. Unfortunately, I played more than 18 courses, so not all of them are going to make it. I didn't pick any holes from Kloof. Surprise.
No surprises.
I didn't pick any from
Camelot.
Nasna. Yeah, I should have actually put Camelot in there. I didn't pick any. I did play Camelot, so make that another one. 20, 21, 22 courses. So Nasna, I didn't put any. Although I do think Nasna is a sick course. I did have a honourable mention in Nasna. I just quickly want to find it. I think it's the 7th. Yeah, it's the 7th hole. What was my 7th? Because it was one that I couldn't. I wanted to pick Gowrie 7th, but the Nasna 7th is also sweet. It's drivable par 4, sloot running down. We love those diagonal sloots on our holes, and a very tricky little green. So I wanted to give an honourable mention to that one. But yeah, nothing from Nasna. Plet, I did pick the Mat hole. Many from Pezula. Selborne I didn't pick. I did have the 5th written down here for an honourable mention at Selborne. And yeah, that was it. I picked one from the others.
JDv, without further ado, I have to wrap here. We have a host of potential activities that need to be covered here down in the EC. It is a beautiful blue sky sunny day. And I don't think the other 4 members of my family are that chuffed with me that I'm recording a podcast in the middle of the day. So
I'm chuffed. That's commitment.
I'm going to say, I want to say, enjoy the rest of your 2024 and over and out till 2025.
Lekker tea. Happy New Year.